At the risk of oversimplifying things, there are generally two tracks in the wealth management business. There's the performance-based track, and there is the time-based track. And I would say if your survival depends on producing or bringing in business, you're on track one. And if your survival depends on showing up and kind of doing what is requested of you, being delegated work from the top down, then let's say for the sake of this video that you're on track two. And not to say that one of these tracks is better than the other necessarily, but I was a track one guy. I got started in the mutual fund sales business, and to me, that was like the equivalent of used car sales for financial products. I shortly thereafter went out on my own. I didn't drink the Kool-Aid that long, and I decided I might just mix my own Kool-Aid. But I have friends who have also been very successful in track two, and they seemingly enjoyed it. Now let's kind of walk through what these different paths might look like and some of the major challenges. So here's you up here, all gung-ho, new advisor, or maybe you've been in the industry for a while, and there's two different paths, right? There's path one over here, and that's gonna lead us down a certain track, and there's path two over here. And just to give you a sense of what's going on here, let's just mix it up and start with path two. Typically, in path two, you're gonna have more top-down control from your institution. There's more rules, there's more requirements, there's less flexibility maybe, and you're part of this really big overall machine, okay? In this situation, there's typically what I would say better median pay, because in the roles typically involved with track two, there is some amount of base compensation. It's not like you're thrown to the wolves and you have to either produce or just die. There's some base salary, and you're probably working to support someone else. Maybe you're a junior advisor and you're supporting some senior advisor who's been there forever. And so that's why I'm saying better pay at the median level. Now, these roles in track two typically come with the option to over time take on more responsibility, take on a share of the clients in that block of business. And so I might say more responsibility. Now, what I'm really referring to here is these bigger wirehouse firms. And in the United States, that might be things like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, it might be JP Morgan, it might be Wells Fargo, Merrill Lynch, all these things. In Canada, we have things like RBC Dominion Securities, we have things like CIBC Wood Gundy, we have Scotia McLeod, these bigger, larger bank institutions that have their particular track of how wealth managers kind of work through their system. Now, path one is a little bit different, right? We have probably less top-down oversight, less guidelines that have to be followed. You're typically the master of your own fate, so I'll say master of fate. If you produce, you survive. If you don't produce, you die. In these roles, you won't have a boss a lot of the time. Maybe you're just gonna have a supervisor who you can go to for support and is desperately trying to get you to hit targets because they have targets for you hitting your targets. I would say there's better early compensation at the extremes. And what I mean by that is if you're really good and you're an outperformer, you're probably gonna out-earn the person in track two at the start, as the person in track two is typically earning salary with maybe some small bonuses, whereas you, on track one, you are in full control of how much you invest in and how much you get out. And so in that sense, track one is more like the be your own boss track. And these would include the independent broker dealers, the RIAs, and a lot of the insurance-focused financial advisory businesses. Edward Jones, Ray J, so Raymond James, and up here in Canada, we would have things like Investors Group, and then all of the insurance companies, obviously, so the Northwestern Mutuals. Up here, we would have things like Manulife or whatever they might be. And the last thing I might mention is that if you went to some fancy-dancy college where it really matters where you get a job afterwards, I would say, in my perception, the wirehouses probably have more status benefits. Ooh, I'm working for Morgan Stanley in the wealth management division, as opposed to I'm at Northwestern Mutual selling life insurance. Typically, these are seen differently in the eyes of the public, right? And now, each of these things come with their own shared sets of challenges that you're gonna have no matter which track you take, and each of these are gonna have their own challenges that are unique to the track itself. Now, in both of these scenarios, you're going to battle the following. Whether you signed up for it or not, you are going to have to learn how to advertise, market, and sell. And many people, like me, right, get into this business because they love personal finance and they love investing and they love teaching it to other people. They love helping people find ways of implementing wealth management strategies to reduce their taxes, optimize their investments, build freedom, right? Achieve these goals they want in their life, all that lovely stuff. But they soon realize that as beautiful as all that might sound, it doesn't really matter if you don't have anyone to help. And so the challenge that we all face, whether we like it or not, and no matter which track we're on, is that we need to be constantly finding the people that need the services. And now based on that, the second big challenge is going to be that we need to then prove to these people that they want it and they need it, and we are the best for them specifically to be the one that does it for them. And so without this, your career will be over very quickly if you don't have a way to overcome these two challenges. The great news is that if you're willing to think outside the box and invest a little bit of time, there are ways of making challenges 1 and 2 actually really easy to overcome. And number 3, whether you signed up for this or not, you're going to quickly realize that you have to learn to communicate in an effective way. You have to learn to communicate in reverse. Great advisors, coaches, teachers, they all have this special skill of taking what they know and being able to make it important in someone else's eyes, rather than just have it all make sense to themselves. As advisors, we often have this thing where we come up with these beautiful strategies that can save someone so much money, and we've optimized their taxes and the portfolio is perfect, and we can project all this out with these big models and this nice written plan. And for most clients, it either just glosses their eyes over or it goes right over their head. And so you also need to develop this skill of how can I communicate in a way where things click for people and they see it as a true benefit to their life rather than just a stack of papers they're going to end up using as a doorstop. Oh, and by the way, if you are a financial advisor who wants to build a constant stream of inbound prospects, you want to have a process for helping those prospects realize that you're actually on their side and then convert more of them into happy clients, or if you want a product or service that makes those clients so grateful for the work you do, then just click that link in the description below and you can get access to my advisor accelerator materials. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Now, to summarize all this, if we think about the challenges that both of these share that you're going to go through, and we assume that you're already a competent person capable of giving great advice and you know all the background wisdom and all the technical aspects you need to know to be great, in that case, you'll have 3 main challenges, right? Finding prospects, converting them to clients, preferably happy, grateful clients. 3 will be doing a great enough job communicating to keep them. When we talk to advisors all the time, they say, I don't know where to get new clients. They say, I don't know how to take the prospects that I get and actually have that prospect become confident that I'm the person and really want to sign up because they like what I'm up to. And lastly, once I get them, I don't feel a ton of confidence in my advice and what I'm saying. And so those are the 3 big things that we hear. Let's talk about the unique challenges to each respective path, depending on which one you're in. Now, in path number 2, this whole big fancy institution wirehouse deal, you have security up front because often you're going to get salary, but you're also working for the man. There's a bit of a trade-off there. And a lot of these advisors talk about getting squeezed by their institution. Oftentimes a big hurdle is that there will be large minimum account sizes for your clients, which makes it tougher for young people who aren't from really wealthy backgrounds to build their business in here. But on the other hand, you do have a really big established brand that you can leverage for trust and for resources, with the slight caveat of the constant class action lawsuits. However, in my eyes, the trickiest part about this track is that you're not really burning the boats. As long as you're obedient and helpful to your manager in this scenario, as long as you're helpful to the powers that be and you put the time in, you can really delay building out your own client base for a long time. Now, this might be better for people who are, let's say, less entrepreneurial, and they would prefer to have security with long-term upside rather than that immediate freedom to do whatever they want. Now, in part 2, it's kind of the reverse. You have very little to no security up front, but at least you have more latitude to get creative and find ways to make the business work. You'll be dealing with more, let's say, lax client minimums or lax standards for who you can take, which will allow you to get momentum quite a bit easier. But on the other hand, now you don't have as big of a brand that you can leverage for that trust and those resources. However, I would say the trickiest part of this track is that you are burning the boats. And so it can be a lot more stressful trying to make ends meet, especially when you're in this hypocritical position day after day where you are giving away financial advice when sometimes maybe your own financial household isn't in order, and that happens. And honestly, that's what I think keeps a lot of track 1 advisors from really getting ahead, at least at first, because what you'll come to understand as an advisor is that the higher the personal level of your own wealth grows, the less intimidating other people's situation becomes and the more confident you are dealing with them. You realize that helping someone with $1 million or $5 million is just as comfortable, if not more comfortable, than helping someone with $100,000 or $500,000. And how could it be more comfortable? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Well, one thing you need to understand is that wealthy people are true delegators, right? They didn't get where they are from doing everything themselves. And so they are much more inclined to rely on a professional and be open to their advice and make sure that they get what they're paying for. They also know that they have enough assets that their worst case scenario is still pretty good. Whereas people with $100,000 saved, they need every penny to hit all their financial goals, and there's way more at stake on the downside if something goes wrong. They could also save a lot more by doing it themselves. And so they're constantly trying to find ways that your advice could be better, or they're constantly thinking of ways their money could be going further for cheaper. But anyways, these are some of the larger advisor challenges you're gonna face in the respective channels. And it's important to have a strategy for how you're gonna overcome each of those in your own unique way. And so whether you're entering the business for the first time, or you've been here for a little while, or you've been here for a long time, hopefully this has helped crystallize maybe some of these big ideas around the different channels you can go through, maybe at the sake of even being overly general. But as mentioned, if you'd like to understand how I overcame all of these different challenges, then feel free to hit that link in the description below. But until then, we will see you next time.